we'll get started here. All right. Hello, everyone joining us. We are just getting started here. My name's Amanda Bruce. I am a member of the staff of NPM. I'm the Communications and Marketing Director, and I'm so happy to welcome you to our certificate Q&A today. If you're here, please let us know where you're here from, but especially what certificate you're considering. This is today going to span the scope of all of our current NPM certificates, organ, piano, and cantor. And so if you have one in mind, we'd love to hear what you're working towards or what you've already achieved. As we begin, I'd love to introduce my panel who is with me today. I'd love to just have them take a second and introduce themselves and just share a little bit of background. So I will start with Kristen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Debagian. I'm the Associate Organist at the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Newark, New Jersey. And I've been serving in ministry with the Archdiocese of Newark and the Archdiocese of Paterson for almost 20 years now. So in many different roles, and I've also been involved in NPM in leadership and also in the AGO or organization and leadership. So.
Thank you. Welcome, Kristen. Why don't we go next with Bill?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bill Gokelman. I'm the chairman of the Department of Music at University of the Incarnate Word, where I direct all the choirs and teach collaborative piano and vocal coaching and all kinds of fun things like that. And I work with the campus ministry here, and I've been involved with parish work for, many, many decades, since I was an 8-year-old soloist with the Altar Boy Choir way back in the day. And I am a pianist. Piano is my primary instrument.
Excellent. And then Gail, we'd love to hear from you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gail Harten. I am a cantor and lector at Mary Immaculate Catholic Church in the Diocese of Dallas, Texas. A retired clinical professor from Southern Methodist University, and I serve as chair of the Cantor Certificate Committee for NPM.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks to our panel for being here today. What we're going to do today is we are going to start with some general questions that really cover the span of all of the certificates that NPM currently offers. And then from there, I'll have a chance to ask some questions about each particular instrument or category of certificates. So we will start with general questions, and then I will speak to Gail about the Cantor certificates, followed by Bill regarding the piano certificates, and then Kristen with the organ certificates. But as we start, panel, I have some questions for you. Feel free to just unmute yourself if you think you have the answer. Or general questions. So I'd love to start by asking, why work towards an NPM certificate? I feel like Gail wants to start. Gail looks like she's ready to start.
Well, it provides a set of standards that can help shape the various aspects of formation, in this case, cantor formation, regardless of a person's background or experience or skill level. And it's a way of affirming a cantor's mastery of the core knowledge and skills that are part of the ministry, as well as the spiritual mindset and commitment to the ministry.
Another question that we get asked a lot is, do you have to be an NPM member to earn a certificate? Does anyone want to answer this one?
I can answer. That's okay. So yes, you do have to be a member in good standing with NPM, and also on the organist side with the dual certifications, you have to also be a member in good standing with the AGO organization.
Okay, great. Who are the certificate programs aimed at? Meaning, do you have to be a certain age or experience level to attain one?
I'll go ahead and start this one. It might be a little different for all three of these. I know with pianists, we don't necessarily have a minimum age, but you should be able to play the instrument well enough to meet the standards of the basic certification. That's probably the best way to do it. We have had youth that have come through, college age students, very very popular. But we have a lot of high schoolers who play for their churches as well. And this is a good way to give them something to aim for, just something to work for. You know, it gives them a purpose to hone their skills and maybe a little direction in what they're doing. So.
Great. My last question for the good of the group before we break into a little bit more information is, how do I find help while preparing for any of the certificate exams?
Cantor certificates, we have a certificate administrator for each of the 3 levels of certification, and they are available. They reach out to applicants, and they're available every step of the way. And for the Cantor colleague level, there's also a separate mentor assigned to help applicants prepare for the colleague liturgy exam.
So for the organ side, materials are available on the NPM website. To go to the AGO website, where you will find the requirements for the AGO section. The American Guild of Organists also provides materials that you can order from them. They're online also to help you prepare for the exams. And same with the colleague exam, since it's the same exam, liturgy exam that the Cantors take, you are assigned a mentor to prepare yourself for that liturgical exam. And I also would encourage people to reach out to their teachers and to those that have experience in certification, and someone that can help you to prepare for that in lesson time and practice time. So I encourage that also.
Good.
Yeah, with the piano, we, being the most recent of the 3 certifications, we are not set up yet to have specific mentors assigned to people. But what Kristen just said was absolutely true for pianists as well. We encourage you to reach out to the community, reach out within your archdiocese or diocese, and to whatever other musicians are there that might be able to help you, especially if it's an NPM member who's gone through certification already, or veteran liturgical musicians that have been doing this a long time and might have some insight and some ways to help you. We strongly encourage that, of course.
Excellent. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to spend a little bit of time asking specific questions about each respective category or instrument for certification. If you just logged on, we do welcome you, by the way. Throughout the next about a half hour or so, we invite you to share in the chat box, if you're watching this live, what certification or certificate program you're considering working towards this year, or if you've already achieved one. And lastly, if you have any questions for Gail, Bill, and Kristen as I speak to them about their respective certificate areas, please ask them in the chat box, because that's one of the benefits of having this as a live Q&A. You get to ask the questions that may be burning on your mind as you prepare. So please feel free to. We will be checking it periodically. So my first guest, if you will, to speak is Gail Harten. Gail and I are going to speak about the Cantor certificates. So Gail, let's start from the beginning. Can you take a couple of minutes and explain the different levels of Cantor certification?
Sure. There are 3 levels: basic, the BCC, intermediate, the ICC, and Cantor colleague certificate, the CCC. And each one has a vocal, a written, and a spiritual component. Everybody starts with the BCC and then has the option, once they've completed that, to continue on to the ICC and the CCC if they wish. But if they prefer just to complete the basic certificate, that's just fine too. It all depends on their needs and their preferences. The vocal component includes some psalms and some service music and some kind of sight singing or pitch matching. And the complexity of each of those components rises as you go from BCC to ICC to CCC. The details are all spelled out in the study guides that are on the website. And Amanda, I know you'll be giving that information on where to locate things on the website. So just as an example, for the BCC, it includes 1 chant psalm and 1 melodic psalm, a setting of the Kyrie and the Lamb of God, a pitch matching exercise, 2 short multiple choice tests addressing very basic music theory and some basic concepts from Sing to the Lord, and the parts of the Mass. There's a short written reflection in which the cantor discusses or writes about his or her way of preparing to proclaim the psalm. Now, at the other levels, though, those expectations will go up a little bit. There are essays to do at the ICC level. The musical repertoire is a little more challenging. And at the CCC level, again, the music repertoire is more challenging. And there is the, along with the written theory tests and so on, there is the colleague liturgy exam. Often the cantors who decide to pursue the Cantor colleague certificate play some sort of leadership role in their ministry or in their parish. But any cantor who's completed the BCC and the ICC is eligible to apply for the CCC.
So to take a second on that, what you're saying is I can't jump to the colleague right away, correct?
Correct. And that's largely because of the developmental and the spiritual component. There's a lot more to it than you might already be an expert singer, a really good singer, but perhaps not as developed in the scriptural and liturgical and spiritual components and knowledge of the Psalms and so on. And so there's an opportunity for everybody to complete that step before moving on.
Can you take an extra second here as well and just give a brief idea of that colleague liturgy test exam that you just spoke of?
It is given twice a year. All the other parts of earning a certificate can be completed throughout the year. Since the process is virtual, you can schedule it at your convenience. The colleague exam, however, is only given twice a year. It's given in June and in January, I believe. And it involves applying a lot of knowledge from some key documents, some key liturgical documents. And you actually have to put yourself in the role of planning a liturgy and discuss what parts of for example, a certain portion of the Mass should be sung and what some choices might be and how does that play in with the liturgical season of the year and those types of things. That's an open book test, but you have to spend a good bit of time preparing so that you know where in those documents to quickly find what you need. And so it involves writing practice essays and getting feedback from a mentor. It's a wonderful learning experience.
Gail, how many months in advance should I begin preparing for any of these Cantor certificates?
Well, everybody has a year from the date of application to complete the certificate. And I would say, depending on your habits and preferences for vocal practice and for studying for the written multiple choice test, I would suggest allowing maybe 4 to 8 weeks from the time you apply for the BCC. That same time frame is reasonable for the ICC, except that there's also an essay component to the ICC that involves writing about the ministry and spirituality of the cantor and the role of the Psalms in all of this. And that you have 2 months from the time of application to complete those. So some cantors like to do that before their vocal adjudication, and some do it afterwards. So you have to figure out that you'll have those extra 2 months to be able to write those essays. The Cantor colleague exam, because of the nature of the colleague liturgy exam, is a longer process. And so I would say you would need to anticipate at least a 6-month period to allow for time to have your vocal adjudication and spend time preparing, writing practice essays, being assigned a mentor and working with that mentor before it's time to take the colleague exam.
Other than the overall amount of time that it, how many months in advance I should begin preparing, how many hours per week of preparation should I anticipate?
Yeah, that again depends on the person and the level. For the BCC, and it depends too on your access to an accompanist for practicing the music. But for the BCC, you might want to spend a couple of hours a week on vocal practice and on practicing or on studying for the written test. If you are already well versed in music theory, in basic music theory, you might not need to spend a whole lot of time on that. If you're already very knowledgeable about all of Sing to the Lord, you might not have to spend a lot of time. But if you're not, you would want to spend some time on that. But a couple of hours a week really would be plenty. The ICC candidate would want to spend additional practice time just because there's more music to prepare, and also additional study time because that written test involves Sing to the Lord and the germ, and the essays are kind of like writing a paper for a course. You wouldn't want to try to knock it out in one sitting, the essays in one sitting. So you'd want to allow, that's why we allow up to 2 months to do that, to give you a chance to read and take your time. The CCC candidate would, a schedule like that would work for them as well, but you'd want to allow some time really every week to be going through the documents, to be highlighting, annotating, putting post-it notes in, and writing some practice essays, which you have access to. So, so that would be, I spent lots of hours for that, mostly practicing for the big liturgy exam. But I had a lot of support and a lot of resources to do it.
So once I've done all of the preparation, how do I submit an exam audition?
For the last 2 years, we've been doing it entirely virtually, the adjudications, and it has been wildly successful. It has worked really, really well. The cantor records the vocal adjudication in his or her parish with the accompanist there, and sends it to the certificate administrator in an agreed upon format. And the music director or whoever is in charge there at the parish can serve as the proctor for the written test, and then the proctor sends those tests back to the certificate administrator. They send it, the recording, in an agreed upon format, such as a YouTube video. That seems to be a popular option with the cantors. They like to use YouTube links to YouTube videos, but the certificate administrator would work with you to accommodate whatever method works best for you. And then you have a follow-up Zoom meeting with the adjudicators, a private Zoom meeting, to share the feedback.
And this is different too than years past, because before the pandemic, if I might be so bold as to say this, you didn't really offer that. If I remember correctly, it was really primarily at the convention that we had a lot of cantor certificates come through. Is that correct?
We did have the option of recorded adjudications, but you didn't get the same personalized feedback on Zoom with the whole group of adjudicators. You pretty much got your score sheet in the mail, and that was really all the feedback you got. And yes, we did have them at the conventions, or occasionally held regional adjudications. The downside to that is that you're in the moment, probably nervous, with an accompanist you've never met before, in front of people you don't know, in a setting you don't know, and people are scheduled back to back to back, and so you do your adjudication, you get a few seconds worth of feedback, and they're on to the next person, and it just didn't lend itself to a positive experience. So, and the virtual can be done any time of the year. If you do your recording and you watch it and you say, I'm not happy with that, you can record it over again before you send it. So it's been great. We've gotten wonderful feedback.
That's great. So again, we will cover this at the end with all of our presenters, all of our panelists today. But for more information on the Cantor certificates, you will be able to find that on the website, which I will guide everyone to at the end. And Gail will be available if you have any questions. If you have any final Cantor questions, feel free to still put them in the chat. But thank you for your time on Cantor certificates, Gail.
Sure.
The next person I'd love to chat with is Bill Gokelman about the piano certificates. So Bill, I'm actually going to start and ask a question of you that I just started with Gail. Can you explain the current offerings for piano certification?
Yeah, so right now, what's officially out there is the basic piano certification. And that's the one that you can sign up for, that's online. There does exist an intermediate and an advanced certification as well, but they're not out there yet. They should be out there later this year, we're hoping, in the fall, to have them ready to go. So those are the 3 levels. Currently, you can only apply for the first.
Okay, great. So we'll focus then on that level for now.
Okay.
So how many months in advance should I begin preparing for that level of piano certificate?
Yeah, that's one of those questions, I think, that's really dependent upon the person, the candidate. So, have you been doing this a while? If you've been playing for your parish a while, you probably have most of, if not all, the repertoire already under your fingers. It's just a matter of choosing which mass setting do I want to use, which psalm do I want to play, which hymn do I want to play. The thing that you might not have readily available is the final standard, which is to play two pieces that it would be suitable to be played at liturgy. And we have online a list, a rather extensive list of examples of pieces that could be played from a vast variety of publishers. And then we also have a list of suggested classical pieces that are online that you can look at as well. Lots of things like Bach, you've got lots of Baroque, you've got lots of classical things, which tend to work pretty well for liturgy, but are not the only things that can work for liturgy. So that's probably, it seems to me, what a lot of the piano candidates spend their time working on is getting those solo pieces together. The other requirements are playing the Sanctus and the More Acclamation and the Amen from any approved mass setting. And what's listed online is a list of different hymnals and resources. It would have to be a mass setting that was published and approved after 2011. So it has the third translation of the Roman Missal, set to those words. It can't be something that is necessarily like a homegrown, self-composed mass setting that has not been approved by any recognizing body of the church. And then you have a psalm setting that you get to pick from, and we have some examples of those online. And then you have two hymns, a metrical standard hymn, and then a more contemporary hymn. And again, online, we have examples of those that you can choose from. So most of that repertoire, I think most pianists already have under their fingers. So it's just a matter of choosing what they want to do. So it may not take you too long at all to prepare for this, if you've got the repertoire ready to go.
So you already described that we probably would have quite a bit of the repertoire under our fingers, if you will, if we're already kind of playing in a church setting. So, but for any, and I know this is an open-ended question, but for the rest of the materials that you just described, those two extra pieces, those two pieces, how many hours per week would I expect preparation for a piano certificate for the basic?
Depending on if you're picking something from those lists, that's really, really difficult. You're going to take more time, but if you're playing stuff that's within your ability, I think what the piano certification folks would primarily be looking for is musicality, understanding of the music that you're playing. I've actually been asked this question once before, should we play something that's really impressive? And my answer is always, don't try to impress the committee. Like, you're not trying to, hopefully you're not trying to impress the assembly. Play something that you play well, that you understand, that speaks to you, that you can make music with. If you're recording yourself playing something that you're struggling with, you're not enjoying it, we're not enjoying it, there's no point in doing that, right? So having said that, I don't think it would take an inordinate amount of time to practice and get all this together. If you're doing something that you can play, that you can play well, and that you can play musically, I can't imagine that it would take more than a few weeks. But again, it's really up to the individual. If you're only able to practice for 1 hour a week, it's going to take longer. Hopefully you're able to commit a little bit of time each day to it. Even if it's a half an hour each day to practicing, that's going to make a lot of difference.
So I'm going to ask a few questions that you actually submitted that were questions that have been asked of you before. So for the exam itself, can I play the exam on an electronic keyboard, or must it be an acoustic piano? And if so, are the rubrics different for electronic instruments?
Right. Yeah, the reality is that there are churches that have clavinovas or whatever, have Yamahas or have electric keyboards. And it's not realistic to expect that everyone has access to an acoustic grand piano or whatever. If you do, of course, it's always preferable, because the tone colors and the variety of nuance that you can do on an acoustic piano is always going to be somewhat greater. However, if you have an electronic keyboard in your parish and that's what you play every week, and that's what you rehearse on, and that's what you're comfortable playing, by all means use that to submit your video. What might change in particular is the last requirement of playing something from the classical repertoire. You would probably have to find something that works. Doing certain Debussy preludes that require use of all three pedals might not work on that electronic keyboard, so you really want to try to find something that you can make work on the electronic keyboard. Other than that, there isn't any kind of rubric change. Just finding settings and pieces that you think work well on that keyboard.
Another question in terms of adaptability based on people's particular situations. So for traditional hymns on the piano, must I play exactly what's on the page, or can I adapt the music to the piano?
Yeah, and that's another really good question. Typically in traditional hymns, they're written in 4-part SATB format. And for pianists, sometimes just playing the straight SATB works great. Sometimes you need to embellish it or alter it. If you're playing in a parish, in a church like my former church that seats 1,800 people in the sanctuary, even with our grand piano there, I had to play big octaves in the left hand to try to simulate, an organ pedal board. And I would thicken the chords, and I would often throw chords up in 4-part voicing up an octave than where they were written. So I was always having to sort of adapt to the piano. The goal here is to play in such a way that you're going to support the singing of the assembly. And sometimes playing just the 4 notes in a closed version on your keyboard may not be strong enough to support 700 or 800 people out there. You're going to know that better than anyone, the reality of your parish. You're there, the size, what it sounds like, the acoustics, how loud it is when everyone sings. So you're the best judge of when I play Ode to Joy, I have to play it like this just to support their sound. And that's completely fine. We expect to hear that sort of alteration. So you're not going to get, demerits or counted off if you double, an octave in the left hand. Just the opposite. We're going to totally understand what it is that you're doing. So that's fine.
Great. My last question for you, Bill, is similar to what I asked Gail. For a piano certificate, how do I submit an exam for like an application or audition?
Yeah, the application that's online takes you through the steps of submitting a video application, and that works fine. The only thing that we ask is you have some sort of witness. I mean, it could be your pastor, it could be your DRE, it could be a member of the parish choir or whatever, somebody who maybe is there with you and can sort of vouch for the fact that, yes, this person played, and then run the video from beginning to end without stops. So go through all of your pieces in one video where we can see you at the keyboard, and we can hopefully, maybe get a glimpse of your hands playing. And that's usually fine. We understand that it's you there. So it's pretty simple process. You just want to make sure, of course, whatever you're recording it on, that the audio is as good a quality as you can get, so that any nuances you're doing are picked up and we don't have notes dropping out, But that's really the easiest way to do it. If you're in a situation where it's very difficult to create a video for whatever reason, and you would prefer to do it in person, we have done in-person adjudications before at one of the conventions. And if that's not an option either, you can always contact me and we can talk it through and we can figure out how best to do it.
Great, thank you. All right, any other questions or things I should hear from you, Bill, in terms of piano certificates?
Just a heads up for the intermediate and the advanced, which will be coming soon. Things that are different, significantly different about those than the basic, is that we will ask for a little bit of improvisation and a little bit of sight reading. The improvisation gets more at the advanced level. We'll actually ask you to improvise a bridge between two pieces that are in different keys. And we're going to ask you to continue an improvisation, for instance, on a communion hymn. Say that you've only got 5 people left in the communion line, so you can't really start another hymn, but you got to keep the music going. What are you going to play? So thinking ahead for some of those kinds of things, those are the biggest differences. So improvisation and sight reading, if you're already one of those people that's thinking ahead, like, ooh, I want to go for the advanced, just to give you a heads up on what we'll be looking for. And the embellishment in the hymns, changing up. We don't pull different stops and change the registration like they do in organ. So how do we change it on the piano when we go from verse to verse to verse so it's not all the same? So things for you to begin thinking about.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Bill. Again, if you have any questions for Bill about piano certificates, please feel free to still put them in the chat. As I transition over to Kristen Debagian about organ certificates. So Kristen, thank you for being with us today to talk about the various levels of organ certificates. I'm going to start the same way I asked Gail and Bill. What are the different organ certificates that you can currently achieve with NPM?
Okay, so the organ certificates, there are 3 opportunities for our organists to be certified. The first one is the basic organ certificate, which is given exclusively by NPM. And it's just an affirmation for our organists to be able to play through a liturgy. So it's they have to choose 2 pieces of their own, one which will include a pedal part, hymn playing, psalm, mass setting, hymn tunes. I said that already. Yes. So that's the basic organ certificate. And then the next 2 certificates that are offered are dual certificates with NPM and the American Guild of Organists. The first being the service playing certificate, which is offered into like sort of the next level, like intermediate level. And when someone applies for the service playing, they'll go to the AGO website and look up the certification. There are specific pieces or specific sections where you'll have to choose the things that are required just for NPM. And that's found in that document. And then the third certification, which is a more advanced level, is the colleague exam, the CAGO, which is also a joint with NPM and AGO. And that portion is a playing portion done through AGO and a liturgical portion, which is the same written exam that is given to the cantors. So those are our 3 certificates.
Great. Can we spend a little bit of time and maybe even go to the AGO website and talk about where we can find the information for the AGO portion of the dual certification? And I'm going to share my screen, Kristen, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So when you go to the AGO website, you go under the education bar and then go down to certification, and you'll find underlined in the red, the service playing certification and the colleague certification, which are the 2 dual certifications with NPM. So under each one, yeah, Amanda, if you wouldn't mind maybe clicking on it. There's a little video that'll explain how you can apply. The service playing is the only application is just done through AGO alone. You do not have to apply through NPM. Just when you're applying for the certification, that you make sure that you choose NPM as your dual certification. And then if you go down onto I think there's the repertoire, you're going to see I
think it's up here.
I think
it's the professional certification requirements,
which is actually all of them in one.
Yes, it is.
All the pages of all of them. So you're just going to scroll down to which certification that so under here, service playing requirements. Just for an example, if you go onto Group C, if you wouldn't mind scrolling just a little bit, you'll see that it says the candidate seeking NPM certification will have to choose certain works. So you just have to go through each of these letters to make sure that you're selecting things that are required specifically for NPM. So this is for the service playing and also for the colleague. There are NPM specific things that need to be chosen for those. certificates.
And there is an area here too that explains the AGO NPM joint certification on this document as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And the dates for those examinations are also, the nice thing about the service playing certification is that you have a kind of a longer window to take that exam. But the colleague exam is only 2 dates, so one in, I think, November, and then in May. They're offered 2 times, once in the fall and once in the spring. There's only 2 specific dates that you can take.
So yeah, let's talk about that really quickly. So when can you audition for the different levels of organ? So we've talked about the dual a little bit. What about like the basic and then the service playing and then the CAGO?
Well, the basic also, it's your preparation is a year preparation. So it all depends again on how, by looking at your repertoire list, how much you're already prepared for it or how much you need to prepare for it. So, that can take several months. But the further you go, as the colleague examination is going to take a little bit more preparation because the repertoire is more difficult. There's more involved. There's studying as far as improvisation and harmonization. And there are choral anthems that there's more keyboard skill preparation for that. So that's going to take a little bit longer time, and including preparing for the liturgical exam, which will also take some studying time for that.
So similar to the colleague Cantor certificate that we talked about earlier, the colleague AGO exam or the CAGO exam, in order for it to be dual certification with NPM, also has a liturgy exam, correct?
Yes, which is the same one that the Cantors take. Yes, correct.
Right. And how often a year is that offered, the liturgy portion?
The liturgy is offered twice as well. I believe in January and June. The dates are on there. So there are two dates for you to choose from.
So Kristen, it would be okay if I'm working towards the CAGO dual certification to do something like the liturgy exam in January and then do the audition portion, the organ portion in May or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. Whichever you're prepared for first. I know a lot of times people take the AGO portion first, which is in the fall, and then they'll take the liturgical exam in the springtime. But whatever, is more comfortable for the candidate.
How do I audition for these different levels? The basic, the service playing, and then the colleague.
So the basic organ certification will be recorded in your home parish, and just a proctor will be assigned to you, someone that will record that audition, and it will be played front to back without stopping. We have in the past offered it live at the conventions, which we hope to be continuing to do that in the future, which is a great experience because it gives the candidate an opportunity to play an organ or on an instrument that they haven't been able to do before, which we sometimes experience in our ministries by going to different parishes and playing on different instruments. So that's a great experience. And as far as AGO exams, they are also recorded. They're just audio recordings. When you apply for that certification, you will be in contact with your local exam coordinator, who will then get you in touch with the parish and the church that you will be doing that actual exam. I'm actually serve as one of those exam coordinators for the Metropolitan chapter here in New Jersey. So I've had the opportunity to proctor that, and we just set up the practice time and the audition time, and same thing. It's all recorded and sent to AGO. And the adjudicators there will always be one that is a member of NPM, so that you'll be having that as an adjudicator for your exam.
So that's very interesting in terms of the organ certificates, is that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the basic and the service playing you apply through NPM, or is it the basic you apply through NPM and then the service playing and colleague you apply through AGO?
That's great to clarify, Amanda. So the NPM the basic certification is just applied exclusively through NPM. The service playing is applied just through AGO. You do not need to have a separate application for NPM because it'll be checked off on the application when you do that. But there is, for the colleague exam, you need to apply both to AGO, and there is also an application for NPM to fill out because of the liturgical portion. So you will need to do a dual application for the colleague exam.
So I'm sure that this question probably only applies to the basic because, as you mentioned, anything with the dual certification with AGO would require kind of being in person at a specific location that would be coordinated. But is there an instrument requirement for submitting an organ audition? So number of manuals, number of ranks, does it have to be a full pedal board? What does that look like?
There are no requirements as far as digital or pipe organ for the basic certification. Just one that on audio is we're able to distinguish registrations. So now it's always, I guess, to be able to have two manual instruments so that you have different choices of registrations. As far as the AGO, you are encouraged to play on a pipe organ. If that is a complication, there have been times where there have been permissions given for digital or hybrid instruments, but it is generally required to have a pipe organ as your instrument for the exam. Not so much number of ranks, but just quickly that we do have to provide that information as when you take the exam, the name of the instrument, the builder, the number of ranks, et cetera, et cetera. So.
I always, side note, I always can tell when I'm visiting in my area where, you know, a fellow organist would say, oh, what church do you play at? Oh, I play at this church. Oh, the Schlicker's there. Or, oh, the Muller's there. You know, like there's something about organ where we always go, we associate the organ with the church. So,
yeah.
So my last question is it okay if I share my screen one more time and we can show where to find that information about finding the location for the exam?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, great. Let's take a look here. Okay.
So again, you're clicking first onto the education link and then to certification, and then it'll pop up there, service playing and colleague.
And then is it also exam locations as well?
I believe that will show the names of all of the locations.
Yes. So that could also be just to give people maybe who are in rural areas an idea of where it would be offered in their area.
Yeah, yes. But when you apply, it will go to your local chapter and to the exam coordinator, and they will get in touch with you to set up your times.
Okay. All right, great. I want to mention too, we were just talking about how we always associate organs with the churches. Heather, who's on the live chat, says, I think we do that with pianos as well. So it's just, it's definitely, I think, a keyboard thing. So, all right. My last question for you, Kristen, is there anything else I missed? Anything you want to point out regarding all the certificate levels?
I don't believe so. I think I just encourage people to do them. I mean, to have self-growth and continuing education is important in our ministries. So I really encourage people to go for it.
I agree. So I'm going to bring everyone back in together on our screen here and just wrap up. I'm going to give everyone the chance to, if you have any final questions for our presenters, our panelists, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I'm keeping my eye on it over here. So if I'm looking over here, that's why. As I wrap up, I want to share my screen one more time so that I can walk you through, as you watch this video, where to find more information about all the certificate programs that we just spoke about. They are all available on the NPM website, and I will share my screen just one more time. From here, from npm.org, you go down to the formation area and then choose certificates. From here, you will find the information for cantors, pianos, and organ certificates. And they will be all right here in their respective tabs in terms of study guides, as Gail mentioned, for the Cantor certificates, rubrics, as Bill mentioned, and repertoire suggestions for piano, and then information about all 3 levels, including the AGO information that Kristen mentioned for organ certificates. If you need any support as you begin to work towards a certificate, contact information for support is in there as well. And I think I can speak for all of our panelists by saying that we here in our respective certificates, we just so want you to succeed when working towards one of these certificate programs. It is a great way, like Kristen just said a second ago, to give yourself kind of a personal goal, a professional goal for you to work towards. It's a great professional advantage. It's something that you can share. Especially, I know that many of us as pastoral ministers, especially directors of music, are working in consolidated parishes where, unfortunately, a lot of our jobs are becoming consolidated with the parishes as well. And so this could be something that you could present to a hiring committee should you have to, heaven forbid, possibly have to discuss reapplying for your job. This is something that could show that you are continuing education at a professional level. So all of these are great. I'm so grateful. Someone said I've seen a lot of misinformation on these topics, so I'm so grateful for this time to kind of break these apart. Again, we so encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. Contact information for all 3 areas are on the NPM website because we so want you to succeed. Are there any other closing thoughts, my panel? Anyone else? Anything else?
I would just add that another benefit is that if you are called upon to minister or to serve at a family wedding, a family funeral, at a parish other than your own, the certificate is a nice way of providing assurance for the host pastor that you indeed are able to serve in an appropriate way.
Yeah,
Great.
and just building on what Gail said, that Gail, you're absolutely right. And sometimes it's the pastor, and sometimes it's the resident musicians of another parish that you're going to, and they kind of want to know your credentials, and they have every right to ask. You know, it's a common courtesy thing. So to be able to say that you have these credentials from NPM does help. I think it does help to put everyone's mind at ease a little bit.
Especially when walking into a church, again, for a loved one's wedding or funeral. I know that as a director of music, I've always experienced that. If you have a bride or groom that says, my uncle Sam, he's a wonderful organist. Well, unfortunately, we don't know what that means until we meet them. And so to be able to say, I'm continuing my professional education, I just recently obtained this professional certification, I do think, like you said, it helps to establish that professional foundation before kind of meeting each other and when working towards that. So yeah, it's a good point. Any other closing thoughts, Kristen?
No, I would just the same as what both Gail and Bill said. It's just important for our ministries to keep this education and to be able to build skills. Since we use them on a week-to-week basis, it's a good thing.
I agree. Well, I thank you, Gail, Bill, and Kristen, for your time today. This has been so enjoyable for myself. And again, I echo what those who are on the live and who watch the replay are probably thinking too. This was so informative. Thank you for your support in each of your certificate areas. And thank you for all you do for pastoral ministry. Thank you to each of you. So appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Amanda.
And thank you if you watched it live or the replay. If you have any questions about any of the certificate programs NPM has to offer or information about membership, check out our website at npm.org. Thank you all so much for your time and have a blessed day. Thank you, everyone.